What an incredible story and an incredible treat it is for all of us to be here this evening. My name is Jed Lippert, and I'm the Dean of Children's Programs and the head of the School for Children here at Bank Street. And it's just my honor to say a few words by way of introduction. I will say that, as Coy mentioned at the outset of the film, Dolores has been at Bank Street since about noontime today. And this afternoon, one of our students in the 8s, 9s of 3rd grade said to me that today was epic. And actually, Dolores is epic. So the way that we're going to proceed is we're really fortunate that Alex Burns, who is an alum of Bank Street, class of 2000, as well as the son of our interim middle school coordinator, George Burns, is here to moderate a discussion. Alex is a political reporter for the New York Times, where he covered the 2016 presidential election. He has also covered New York politics for the newspaper's Metro section. He went from Bank Street and graduated from Fieldston High School. He's also proof that people who go to social justice schools do get jobs and become prior to joining the New York Times in 2015, Alex worked for Politico in Washington, D.C., reporting on national politics and President Obama's 2012 re-election campaign. Alex is a 2008 graduate of Harvard College, where he was editor of the Harvard Political Review. He lives not far from here with his wife, MJ Lee, who's a political reporter for CNN. So without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to Alex, who's going to have a conversation, fireside chat style, without the fire, with Dolores, and then we will open it up to questions from the audience for the final 15 or 20 minutes.
Well, thank you, Jed, for the introduction, and thank you so much, Dolores, for being here and for participating in this conversation. It's an honor for me as well.
Thank you very much, and thank all of you for being here this evening. Thank you.
It's hard to know where to start with you, and especially after a story like that. So I want to begin by asking you to take us to a specific moment that we didn't quite see in the movie. That we saw that great footage of the Great Boycott, and then we saw that great moment sort of after the victory, where you start to see the Union stamps on the boxes, but we don't see the moment where you actually find out that you won.
Let me think. Well, first of all, I want to thank all of you in New York, those of you who may have been part of the boycott. I'm sure your parents, maybe grandparents, the children were part of the boycott, because without you, and by the way, the boycott started in New York City and then went all across the country. But without you, the farm workers in California, well, I should say, first of all, farm workers throughout the whole United States of America would not have bathrooms in the fields, would not have cold drinking water, would not have the right to minimum wage and other protections that they got. So give yourselves a big applause for that one, please. And the question is, oh, that's really interesting, when we won. Well, we had actually kind of analyzed the work that we were doing in the boycott, and we realized when we saw that the prices of grapes here in New York had dropped from maybe $12 a box for a box of grapes to 75 cents a box, and then we were winning. And so then it was just kind of waiting, and one evening, one of the big growers, John Jamara Jr., called us at 2 o'clock in the morning, and he said, I want to negotiate. And we knew that he had won. But Cesar, being the great, smart strategist that he was, he said, well, yeah, we'll talk to you, we'll have and we did meet with him, but he said, I want you to get all of the growers together. I'm not just going to negotiate with you. And then he said, and I want you to do it within the next 24 hours. And guess what they did? So within 24 hours, we were able to meet with all of the leaders of the grape industry, and we were able to negotiate a contract.
And what does that feel like? And is that sort of how you imagined it would happen, or could you even imagine it would happen?
Well, we knew that we were not going to give up until we won. And we didn't know exactly how it was going to be, but we did know also that we wanted to sign with all of the industry at the same time. to get all the growers to sign the same contract. And actually, when we started the union, we were not going to go on strike for 5 years. That was our plan, because we wanted to get the growers from the whole Central Valley. But then when the Filipino workers went on strike, then we had no choice but to support them. And so it kind of changed our plan. But even then, we never would have won without the boycott. Because the growers could keep bringing in strike breakers like every other day. And so it was impossible to win with the strike.
We see you so many times in the movie looking totally fearless, and like you're the most confident person who's ever been alive. And I wonder if that's the full picture, and if there was ever any, if there was fear, if there was doubt behind that expression.
Well, I remember this, and this is important too. When the strike started, and of course we'd been out there on the picket line for a couple of weeks, and they kept bringing in more and more strike breakers. And I remember leaving my picket line with another person, and I said, "Watch the picket line. I'm going to go down to the office." And then I told Caesar, I don't know if we're going to win the strike because they keep bringing more and more strike breakers. And he said, and these are really famous words. He said, "You go back to that picket line, and don't you ever leave your people alone. And don't forget, the only time you lose is when you quit." And I'll always remember those words. The only time, even if it takes a long time, the only time you lose is when you quit.
It strikes me that there's a quote very much like that that's attributed to Nixon, right? That you're not finished when you're defeated, you're finished when you quit. And it's especially after we see sort of you facing off with him in the film, it's sort of funny to me that was the attitude on your side as well. What do we not see in the movie? That there are so many chapters in your career. What was left out?
Well, what was left out, first of all, that I was a teacher, and I could teach you to help families. Because nobody could understand why I would do such a foolish thing, giving up a nice safe job and go down to Delano without any source of income. And how was I going to support my children going through the middle of a divorce with 7 kids? So that was, and people thought that I was a little nuts to do that. Yeah, but that was the biggest decision and the best decision I ever could have made. And I think that we have to remember that too, because if we want to make a difference, we have to take risks. And sometimes that doesn't seem like rational decisions, but sometimes we have to take those risks. So that was, I think, the biggest decision that I made. But the other thing that is not shown in the movie, and this is an important one, that I was a Girl Scout. And I was a Girl Scout for 10 years of my life. And I had a big argument with the director on this because it doesn't really show the work that we're doing now. My foundation, the Dolores Huerta Foundation, we're focusing a lot on education. And I was said this to the students here earlier. We would love to see all of the students in the United States get the type of education that you have here at Banks School. That would be so awesome. The question that we have in our area down in Central Valley, California, and in many parts of the country, that our children of color are not getting a quality education. And they used to call it dropout, but it's really push out. And we have large numbers of African American and Latino children, and poor white kids also, that are being pushed out of schools. And we're working on trying to stop what we call the school-to-prison pipeline. And that is happening all over the United States of America. And so we have to change those laws, and we are very engaged in many school districts right now, including suing some of these school districts because of the large numbers of African American children and Latino children that are being pushed out of schools.
Let's stay with the foundation. Tell us about the work of the foundation over the last decade and a half, and tell us about what the foundation is doing to meet this really unusual political moment that we're in now.
Well, the way that we organize, and it's exactly the same way that you saw in the movie that we organized the Farm Workers Union, and the organization that preceded that, the Community Service Organization. And what we do is we raise money, hire organizers, train them, and send them into communities. And every organizer has to with 200 people. They would bring them all together, and then they have to vote if they want to form an organization. And then they talk about the issues that are in the community, and they have to prioritize them, and then they have to make an action plan. And then they have to volunteer to take care of the issues. And in those house meetings that we have, we show them how people that look like them were able to bring in street lights, sidewalks, gutters into the community. One of our communities, they built a brand new gymnasium for the middle school by passing a bond issue. We got swimming pools and parks in some of these neighborhoods. And then bigger things like getting them to run for office. And so we have farm workers, and we have farm workers, hotel maids, construction workers that are now sitting on school boards and utility boards in their area. And in other words, teaching them how to take the power so that they can solve the solutions in the community. And of course, the big one is our education committees. The parents are taking out the local school districts to correct whatever happens to be wrong in the school districts. And then, of course, we do a lot of civic engagement work. We also make sure people become citizens, that they register to vote, and that they vote. And that is the big issues that we do. And then we do health issues also.
It feels like, you know, you mentioned that you train people to sort of not just advocate on politics, but to deliver specific things for the community. It feels like that's something that's so often really missing from political activism. It's, you know, not just advocating on big themes at the national level, but being able to go into communities and say, we did this thing for you, look, the gymnasium's right there.
Yeah, and this is how they develop the leadership that they need to have, is by getting in there and doing the political work. And we also work on the national issues, like right now we've been working like everybody else on the Dreamers, you know, trying to get our Congress people to be able to vote for a Clean Dream Act for the Dreamers. We've worked on some state issues. We've done some great things. One of them is that we have passed a couple of propositions to make our millionaires pay more in state taxes. We are bringing in over $9 billion a year, and that money is going to education. And then we're working on another proposition for this next election to make the people that have commercial properties, like Disney and Chevron, the oil companies, to pay what they're supposed to pay for their property taxes, and that'll bring in about $11 billion a year. And all of this money goes to education.
You know, when you look out at, well, I suppose you're not just looking at, you're in them. When you see the women's marches, when you see the other marches and resistance activities related to this president, how much do you see continuity in the themes and in the tactics from the ones that we saw in your career?
Well, I am very happy, I think, like a lot of people are, when we see that so many people have become involved. When you see the women's marches and you see the Me Too movement, and it's time movement. I think that the fact that people are really getting involved, getting engaged, and this is one thing that I go around the country, I've been following the film all over the United States, just asking people, please, and it's not enough to vote. It's not enough to vote. We want people to, you know, get out there, put their tennis shoes on, you know, knock on doors, do phone banking, because every one of us can maybe get 40 or 50 other people to vote that maybe aren't voting. And just so people would see the urgency of the time that we're in right now. Because if we do not vote, we can't have a democracy. And I think that is the one thing that is holding us back. And by the way, I think the one thing that all of us have to make a priority, and I know it's a priority here at this institution here, is to make sure that we get more money for education, more money for our teachers, more money for our students, and also, and I'm going to say this, it's not part of the question, but I think that we can really end the racism and the misogyny and the homophobia and the bigotry in our society through education. Because we have the structure in the United States, we have the structure, but we've got to change the content. And we've got to start teaching in every single school, starting from pre-kindergarten, what the contributions of people of color have been to the United States of America. Teach that Native Americans were the first slaves. We do not teach that the White House and the Congress were built by African slaves. We do not teach about the people from Mexico, from Japan, from China, from the Philippines, from India, all the people that came and built our country, that it was immigrants that built the United States of America. color always feel like the second grade citizens, you know? And they don't, because they don't have that respect that they should have for what their people did. And our Anglo children then will always be fed the poison of white supremacy. And I think that the reason that we have so much going on right now, that we have organizations like the alt-right and the neo-Nazis, is because those children never learned the real history of the United States of America. And I think it's incumbent upon us, because racism is a cancer. Misogyny is a cancer. The women are not treated, you know, equally. And all of this is really bringing our country down. And it doesn't just affect the United States of America, it affects the whole world, because we are the most powerful country in the world. And also we need to teach our children about the civilizations that were in Africa. You know, Egypt is part of Africa. The big ancient civilizations that were in Latin America. You know, way before they had European cities, Mexico City was always the largest city on the continent. You know, so there's so much that we're not taught, and about labor unions also. That labor unions got us the 8-hour day, safety standards, unemployment insurance, workers' compensation, social security, public education, etc., etc. Okay? And active labor, that we have all of these benefits for workers, but if people are not taught that in schools, how are they ever going to know all of these big benefits that workers have came to be?
I mean, let's talk more about educating people about labor, because when you list the sort of set of issues where you'd like to see the United States be a more progressive country, when you talk to younger people, they're pretty much on your side when it comes to racism, misogyny, homophobia, immigration. They don't necessarily think about labor rights as part of that. So why do you think that is? How do you change that?
Well, again, we have to teach it, because otherwise how are they going to know? I mean, a lot of people don't know that the way we got the 8-hour day is because they had huge riots and the people were killed. You know, they had the May Day riots in Chicago, and people don't know that. And the people were killed trying to get the 8-hour day, and that was at the turn of the last century. And if people are not taught that in schools, how are they ever going to know? And just the simple benefits that workers have today, and they don't realize that the people actually fought and died to get those benefits for them.
I want to open it up for questions pretty soon, but first I want to ask you maybe a little bit of a risky question for an East Coast audience. There are a lot of things that are different now from the times that we saw in the film. One thing that's not different is California really being at the vanguard of progressive politics, progressive organizing. I think we even saw Jerry Brown, the current governor, for a split second. So why is it that California plays that role, and what can folks on the East Coast learn from the West Coast?
Well, that's a great statement, except that where we live, Bakersfield, California, which is the Central Valley of California, and Bakersfield, California is more like Alabama, okay? I'm serious. I mean, to give you a couple of examples, one of our school board members said that gays should be burned at the stake. Recently, our sheriff brought in Joe Arpaio, who was this really terrible person in Arizona, who was a sheriff and was convicted actually in Arizona, but number 45 just pardoned him, you know, for what he did. That's Trump, by the way, 45. And then they kind of, our school board actually voted that they could bring guns into the school, that every person in the school, every teacher, any person in the school could have a gun in our schools. They actually approved that. Luckily, at the state level, we were able to pass a law that forbids them from bringing guns into the school. That's how backwards we are. But I will say this, that for
I'm trying to make you guys look good here.
But I will say this for New York, and I have been saying this to some of the children that we spoke to today. Unfortunately, in New York State, you do not have unemployment insurance for farm workers. You do not have, farm workers do not have the right to organize. Farm workers here do not have a decent workers' compensation bill if they get hurt on the job. And Kerry Kennedy, Senator Robert Kennedy's daughter, has been working for this for the last 12 years. So I was asking today, when some of the students were asking, what can we do? I said, well, let's write a letter to your leaders in the state legislature and say, what's up? It's time for farm workers in New York State to have the same benefits that farm workers in California have.
You have perfectly to the last question I want to ask you, which is, and we see that wrenching moment with you on stage with Robert Kennedy. A couple decades later, we saw his grandson give the response to the State of the Union last night, and he's a member of the House of Representatives. Your son is running for the House of Representatives. And I wonder if your families are in touch at all, and I wonder what you made of that speech last night.
Well, I thought his speech was very great. I thought it was very simple, and he touched on all of the important issues. And he talked about us, all of us as a country being together, which is an important thing. You know, care about the people that are less fortunate than the rest of us. So I thought his speech was great. And by the way, I believe it's his uncle, Chris Kennedy, is running for the governor of Illinois. So hopefully we get more Kennedys in power.
Maybe more purchases as well. Well, we want to go to the audience. I'm sure you have a lot to ask Dolores, and I don't want to hog the time.
I just want to say first, thank you. I am so proud of the work that you have done. It was a big moment for me because I looked up to you as a child, as a young woman, and as a labor organizer now. My career is based on organizing jornaleros, trabajadoras del hogar. My sister is a civil rights litigator with Malta because we looked up to you. We make it a family effort to join social justice because we had the privilege to grow up watching you do your work. And I have a question now. I organize domestic workers, another work sector that cannot unionize. It is disaggregated, and I train worker leaders. And I was wondering if you could please speak to voice, agitation, and taking up space, especially amongst women who are so invisible in our society, but take care of the most important parts of our lives, our children, our homes, and our elders. What would you say to other up and rising worker leaders who want to be organizers, who want to be in their communities? And how can they make this part of their life effort as well?
Well, thank you. And by the way, in California, domestic workers, we did pass a law to include domestic workers so that they can have a union. So that's another thing that to put on our list. When we ask for collective bargaining for farm workers, let's also include domestic workers, okay? Let's do that. So we're looking at the organizers who make that happen. And again, it's just a matter of the people that we elect to office. We know that there's going to be elections 2018 for the state assembly, for the Congress. And let's put that on our question for the people that are running for the state assembly or the state senate. Would you please support collective bargaining so that they can become a union for farm workers and domestic workers? Okay, we can all make that happen. We can all make that happen. Thank you.
After knowing Cesar Chavez for so long, how did you feel when he died?
Well, it was sad when Cesar died, but the one thing is, Cesar Chavez was a very big advocate of nonviolence, and Cesar died in his sleep. And he had a brochure in his hand that did not fall. He had his glasses on his nose that did not slip. So he died very, very peacefully. And I think because he, believed in nonviolence, it was very sudden. I had spoken to him just the night before, and I said, Cesar, how are you doing? And he said, I'm doing well. And then he died in his sleep. So he went very peacefully, and it was interesting that he died so young because his mother and his father both lived to be 100. But his grandfather lived to be 66, the same age as Caesar. And the one thing about Caesar, when people would say to Caesar, what's going to happen when you die? What's going to happen to the Union? And his response was, if I thought that the Union would not live beyond me, I never would have organized it in the first place. So he was always making sure, and a lot of leadership came out of the United Farm Workers. In fact, you have union leaders right here in New York State that were part of the Farm Workers Union. So, and that was a great thing about the Farm Workers Union, so much leadership developed.
Good evening. Thank you very much for the order. My name is Leonie St. Clair, and I am a grandmother of Backstreet students. Of a Backstreet student. And she tells me every day I'm here, come to pick her up, and she tells me how much she has a beautiful day because she loves the kind of work you do and she admires you. And I live, your example, you are a model to me. And I appreciate very much what you do. I came here to the United States, I was 29 years old. And now I am 78 years old. I raised 3 children of my own, 7 grandchildren. I take part in all their life. Even they don't live all with me, but I help, I take to school, I help the way I can. And this is the 7th one. She still lives with me and uses me as she wants me. So, as grandparents, it's not time to see if we want the young one to succeed. So I feel like we have to help them. The mothers, the son, we want them to achieve the schedule is static. When we retire, or they will say, oh, I'm retired, I raised my children already. But you know what, when you can contribute that time, you can help, please do. Because the young people, if you want them to succeed, to continue to succeed, you have to help them when you have the time. Don't be retired since 2006. I'm still working because every day I'm out. One
of the things that we have to work on to make sure that people do keep some kind of retirement when they keep working. And you know, that's again because of our economy and our systems, we have made it very much more difficult. By the way, the farm workers that were part of the Farm Workers Union, they have retirement. They have a retirement plan, so they get a pension.
Have you ever at any point thought about hanging it up?
Well, not really. I mean, as long as I have energy and health, I want to keep on going because I want to be able to get more people to become organizers, organize more communities, get more people to participate. I think that is so important. And the one thing about when we go into a community and organize the people, and it's like magic, because then they take the power, you know, and they run for office and they do all of these wonderful things. And these are people that never went to high school, they never got a college diploma, but they're out there doing the work. And I like to say this too, if they can do it, how much more can the rest of us do, right? That we do have an education, that we are bilingual or trilingual, and we can do so much more. And I think this is what we want everybody to do, is to really get involved and say, this is our country, and we really got to make a democracy work, but we know that it's not going to work unless we get involved and make it happen.
Where's the next question?
Here's the back.
How did it feel to have your children's love as you heal?
Oh, my children, I think, some of my children actually came to New York with me. I was in New York for 4 years during the Great Boycott and the Lens Boycott after that. And my children really, they enjoyed it. I'm going to quote one of my children who said this. He said, we had to share our mother with the world, but my mother shared the world with us. And so they had a lot of great experiences. They met a lot of wonderful people. Although we grew up very poor, they had all of these wonderful experiences that they never would have been able to have had it not been for the work that we did in the union.
And what about, I think she was referring to when you were so seriously injured at that protest, that what does it mean to have your children around you then?
Well, my children, of course, were very worried about that, but they were very supportive. And the one thing a lot of people said to me, "Are you going to quit now?" And my answer was, "No, you got to keep on going." and people said, "Do you still believe in nonviolence?" And I said, "Yes, because I think that's the only way that we can win. Because if we use violence, then we become like the people, we become like the haters, right? And we don't want to be like the haters."
When as an activist were you most motivated to continue?
As an activist, when were you most motivated to continue? I think was the question. Was there ever a moment when you really had to push yourself to continue?
No. I think I was an activist when I was a young person, just a teenager, because the police were always harassing us. They would stop us coming home from a basketball game or a football game, and they would search us and give us a hard time. And we weren't doing anything, just coming home from the game. And they treated us differently. And so I think that always made me very angry. And so I think that's also what motivated me to become an activist. So I think I was an activist when I was a Girl Scout.
Did any of your friends or family have any objections to your being an activist at any time? Can you share one story?
Well, a lot of my relatives couldn't understand why I was doing that. They thought that maybe I should, like a lot of women have been told, stay home, take care of your kids. What are you doing out there in the public eye? And that's a criticism that people get, I think, not only myself, but other people get. But my mother told me this. She said, as long as you know that you're trying to help people and you're sincere and you're not taking advantage of people, don't listen to what people say about you. As long as you're doing the right thing, just ignore what they say. And so I would give that advice to everybody in the room also. Because people will criticize you when you are out there.
What was the scariest part of your life?
The scariest thing that ever happened to me is one night, early in the morning, someone came to my door in Delano, knocked on my door, and they said, Helen Chavez sent me. I said, who is it? They said, Helen Chavez, that's Caesar's wife. And so I was going to open the door. Luckily, I had a latch on the door, and they tried to push the door open. Then they went and they broke my windows in my house. I was very much afraid. I got my children, and we all went into the bathroom. And we found out later that it was one of the foremen for one of the growers. And luckily they couldn't get into the house because we had all the latches on. But it was a very scary moment. And I was scared, I think, mostly for my children. And I think that was the scariest moment that I had. And I found out later that that same company had done the same thing to a farm worker in Texas who had supported the union. That they did the similar thing. They were going to her house in the middle of the night, breaking all her windows of her house. So it was kind of a terrorist act.
And did you do anything different after that?
Well, I did go to the district attorney and try to file a complaint, but they wouldn't take it.
What was your most sacrificing moment where you had to leave your kids behind? What was the most emotional thing they had said to you?
That's a great question, and I think it was kind of emotional for my children, but they got used to it. And they overcame it.
When we see that clip of the interviewer asking you, basically what's wrong with you, leaving your kids, did that happen all the time? Was that a question you got a lot? And when you got the question, was it bracing for you, or were you able to just shrug it off?
Well, I had always worked anyway, and I think all of the women in the room here, they go through that every single day. Every single day, working mothers and working fathers have to think, who is going to take care of my children, you know? Are my children going to be safe, are going to be secure? And so I was used to working, I was used to always having someone to watch my children. And in the union, we always had, we had a daycare for the kids, so my kids were never alone. They were always taken care of. And that was just one of the things that we had to do. I did take my children with me as often as I could. When I came to New York City, some of my children came with me. They actually went to school here in New York. They went to school here. So it was just a way of life. You know, it was something that we had to do.
I know your parents were an activist, but like, what did they like fight for?
My parents?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, my mother was a businesswoman, and she was a very charitable person, always doing things in the community, leading people to registration drives and helping people out with whatever different kind of events that they had. And I was raised with my father, but my father was a volunteer member of the Mine Workers Union in New Mexico, and my father was also a state assemblyman in the state of New Mexico. So activism was kind of part of our family tradition, which is also big.
As a woman in academia and a Latina in academia, I try to engage with both the academia institution and the community outside of academia who might not have the same access that I, have the privilege to have. I try to bring our voice into those spaces and in as many ways as I can. And I'd love to get your input on how other women in academia and perhaps family members or other community members outside of academia, what they can do. As I heard in the video, they said, how can they engage in a way that is non-white in such a largely white institution?
Well, thank you for that. And I think teachers, and I know teachers are so overburdened because I've been a teacher. My daughter Juanita was a teacher for 16 years, and I know teachers have to do so much preparation before class. You have to do so much work after class, and so many more hours the teachers put in the time that they're teaching. But it would be wonderful if more teachers were like you that would go out into the community. And I know when I'm saying that it's really hard because teachers don't have a lot of time to do that because your voices are needed. And I think we all have to, and I think I may have said this before, but I think all of us have to put education as the #1 priority in our country, because we're not going to change the United States of America until we make sure that we have all the education that we need so that our people can be enlightened. And there was a Spanish philosopher named Jose Ortega y Gasset in Spain. And he was a philosopher before Franco took over the dictatorship of Spain. And he had a saying in a book that he wrote actually called The Revolution of the Masses. And in his book, which is a very small 100-page book, he said this: if we do not have an educated citizenry, then we will have mob rules. The greedy and the powerful will run the government. The greedy and the powerful will run the government because ordinary citizens are not educated. And so I think that we have to remember this, and we have to do everything that we can to say, yes, we've got to make sure that every single person in our country is educated so that people will know the importance of contributions of people of color, as I said before, but also what's going on in the world outside of the United States. It's abysmal that we have so much ignorance. Like when we talk about universal health care, free health care. People in Europe have free health care. People in Latin America, like Cuba, little teeny Cuba has free health care for all of their citizens. They have free education, college education for all of their citizens. And Cuba's a little tiny country, as you know, with an economic boycott on it. And yet everybody in Cuba can go to college free. You can become a doctor free in Cuba. In fact, you can go from the United States and become a doctor free in Cuba. I mean, they open it up to other countries. So if they can do it in this little teeny country, if they can do this in Europe, in Norway, then why can't we do it in the United States of America, right? We need to do that.
So, I think a lot of what you said probably will play into the response to my question. You've been a participant and a first-hand witness in so much extraordinary advancement in the country's history in civil justice and civil rights. And, you know, I think many of us here see a lot of those accomplishments threatened right now. How do you think we got here, and what do you see for the future?
Well, I think the way we got here is, number one, that a lot of people don't participate in voting. And a lot of people were turned off maybe because their candidate didn't win, so they didn't vote. And people just kind of gave up. And again, a lot of people, as I say, a lot of people that they think that immigrants shouldn't be in the United States of America, forgetting that their parents and grandparents were also immigrants to this country. And you know, this whole issue of keeping people out because they happen to be black or brown, I mean, that is part of the ignorance that I'm talking about. So I think that's why we are where we're at right now, because we just have a lot of people that just don't know. And they've been fed this racism from the time that they were children. And so I think that's the way that we have to get out of the pit that we're in right now, is by making sure that we are able to educate people. I don't think how anybody, and I think people in this room would agree, I know you agree with me, how can anybody call themselves a neo-Nazi knowing about the Holocaust? You know, how can anybody, I think we wonder about that. Or how can anybody even think that they're better than somebody else? And by the way, one of the things that I like to say when I do a lot of lectures, this is the way I raise money for my foundation, but one of the things I like to say to people is to remember that we are one human family, and that we are one human race, and that our human race began in Africa, and that our human race traveled across the planet, went to Asia, people of some other color, came down to the very straight to the Americas, and one of our tribes got lost way up north where it's really cold, and they lost the color. And now people have to go to the tanning salon to the beach to get the color back. And so, you know, we remember that we are only one human family, Homo sapiens. You know, just one human family. That means that even though we have a lot of ethnic groups, a lot of different cultures, a lot of different nationalities, when you come right down to it, we are all Africans. There's different shades of colors. And you can remember that there is no reason that somebody should hate somebody else because they have a different color of skin. And I think it's important that all of our children learn that and remember that, because we're really talking about science here, right? We're talking about science. Just like when we talk about global warming, we're talking about science, okay? So I think it's important that we really, you know, make sure that people understand that and know that, especially our young children. Because kids, they get it. Children are not racist. They get that from their parents. And we can't end it. And we have a responsibility to end it.
So I want to first thank you for the power of your example and the legacy that you leave all of us. Rest assured that while Mr. O'Reilly never heard of you, millions of us grew up admiring you over here on the East Coast. That's it. I understand the issue of identity, because for so many of us in our generation, so I'm 20 years younger than you, we struggle with the whole issue of what am I? Am I Puerto Rican? Am I an American? Am I Chicano? Am I American? Will America ever accept me? Even Michelle Obama alluded to it when she made that statement that for the first time in her life, she felt like a full-blooded American and got a lot of heat for that. And most of us are sitting there, yeah, we understand because we feel the same way. So my question is, what do you tell your grandchildren, not so much my generation, on this issue? Because I find that many of our children and our grandchildren still struggle with that issue. Where do we fit in and who are we? What advice do you give your grandchildren on that issue?
Well, it's something that I have been struggling with my entire life. As you saw in the movie, my great-grandfather was in the Civil War on the Union side. You know, in my family, my brothers, my dad were both in the Navy in both the World War II and in the Korean War. And that was going through school. You just were never made to feel like you belonged here. And I know a lot of children of color still have that same struggle. And so I guess our answer to that is that we have to claim who we are. We have to claim and say, yes, I am a citizen of the United States, and I consider myself an American. And by the way, when you think of the word American, it starts in Canada and it goes all the way down to South America to Peru. We Latinos like to say we didn't cross the border crossed us. We didn't before the border.
You said in the assembly that since the police assaulted you, they paid you money each month. And did you have to make them pay the money, or did they just do it willingly? Did you have to...
Yes, actually, as you saw in the film, when I got that little beating from the San Francisco police, we sued the city. And of course, now because of that beating, I get $2,000 a month till I die. It's very good because my Social Security is very small. It's only $600 a month because in the farmworkers union we never received wages. We just got subsistence. So in some ways, as I said to the children, that there's a saying in Spanish that says, "No hay nada mal que algo que no sale." And in English that says, "There's nothing so bad that something good doesn't come out of it." Okay? So it's kind of good to remember that when bad things happen.
I was wondering what other changes besides the migrant farm workers and women's rights would you want to make?
Well, I'm on the board of Equality California, and we are fighting for the rights of LGBT people. First Pride March ever. And also I think we have to fight for the economic rights of everybody because it is not fair in the United States of America that we have a lot of homeless people and people don't have a place to live. I think that is something, and I really can't personally say right now that the one thing that we're doing for homeless people is that we got a bunch of bicycles from Burning Man. And we have been fixing those bicycles, and we're going to be fixing them to get to the homeless people. To take my bicycles. And I'm really hoping one thing I'm kind of thinking about having a whole new movement. And that is getting everybody to sponsor a porta potty, a latrine for homeless people. Okay? Because like the farm workers that didn't have any place to go to the bathroom because the growers would provide that, here in our cities, we know homeless people don't have any place to go to the bathroom. In a lot of places that they say they're public, but they're not public for homeless people. So, and I think we have to kind of change the income inequality that we have in our society. And that's what we're doing in California. And taxes, okay? So, and we're doing that through policy, through legislation, and hopefully we can do that all over the United States of America. So it's not fair that people should have multi-millions of dollars and you have other people who don't have enough food to eat.
Blessings and peace. Ms. Huerta, I'd like to thank you for your decades of tireless service and activism. I heard you say in your film, back in the day, a long time ago, that the day at the spa, that wasn't your thing. What I do want to know, though, is what are you doing now to replenish yourself? Because I know as activists and as workers, especially someone who spent decades in service to others, we can't continue to run on empty. So what do you do today to do the self-care? What's your regimen? What do you do to refill your cup? Because I know you have to fill it somehow.
Well, to be honest, being here with all of you is my replenishment. This is what really replaces me, and this is what I live for. And I know that some of you are going to carry this message outward and even talk to those people who don't agree with us. And sometimes it takes a little while to do that, because I know we have relatives and friends that are not they have their consciousness hasn't been raised and not enlightened enough. But I think if we can think of each and every one of us as being messengers of justice, and messengers of love, that we can reach more people. And I think that's the important thing that we have to do. That if each one of us can take responsibility to talk to someone and tell them about why they need to be involved, what we can do to go against the hatred in our country, then I think that that's what we need to do. But I thank you for the question. And I do want to say a couple more things before we wrap up. A couple of things. We just celebrated Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday, and I was at many celebrations. But guess what? They forget to mention an important person, and that is Coretta Scott King. If it were not for Coretta, we would not have a Martin Luther King holiday, because she's the one that campaigned and made that happen, along with President Harry Belafonte, Stevie Wonder, and others. And one of the things that Coretta Scott King said is we will never have power, we will never have peace until women take power. But I want to amend that statement to say we will never have peace until feminists take power. Workers' rights, immigrant rights, women's reproductive rights, LGBT rights, environmental rights, etc. And I say that because the men in the room are also feminists, okay? And this is something to remember also. When people, when we were organizing farm workers, people would say to us, how can you organize the workers? They're poor, they don't speak English, they're not citizens, they don't have any money. How can you organize them? And it was simple. We just said to the workers, you have power. And the power is in your person. The power is in your person. But you can't do it alone. We've got to come together. We've got to take direct and violent action. And this is the way that we make the changes. And they did. Little by little, we convinced the farm workers that they had power. And they were able to do everything that they did. And that's what we do right now when we continue our organizing. Remind people that they have power and they can make the changes, but the changes have to be through policies, and the policies are made by the people that we elect to office, okay? They're the decision makers. And so I'm going to ask you all a question right now, and I know you know the answer. And the question I'm going to ask you, who's got the power? And I want you to yell it out and say, we've got the power. And I want to say, what kind of power? And I want you to say, people power, right? So the question is, how do we get out of this struggle that we're in? With people power. That's how we do it. Okay, so I'm going to shout it out, and I want you to shout really loud, loud enough so that the neo-Nazis can hear us. So, let me go. Let's go. Who's got the power?
We have the power!
What kind of power?
People power!
Okay, are we going to go out there and organize and educate? What do we say?
Once an organizer, always an organizer. Dolores also organized our students and our faculty earlier today. So I wanted to just be really brief in wrapping up this evening and acknowledge that Dolores' visit was made possible by the generous support of parents in our community. So it feels like a true blessing to be in a community where folks who have that ability are able to provide that for all of us. So I wanted to thank our parent community for that generosity. I also want to say that in the lobby when you leave, there is a colleague of Dolores's from the Dolores Huerta Foundation who is outside with a table selling merchandise to raise money for the foundation. So by all means, please show your generosity by purchasing items for sale after the event. I want to thank Alex Burns certainly for coming to be with us this evening. We have a gift for you, Alex. Your alma mater. I also, most importantly, want to thank the indefatigable, more energy than most of us combined, inspiration, Dolores Huerta, for being at Bank Street for a full day. Have a wonderful evening, everybody.